Hello everyone. It's great to see you again in today's video. Just like any other working day, Jack walked into the company with a confident look, his face shining with comfort and the most relaxed mood. His female employees had arrived early and were working hard. Jack greeted everyone, and then he went into the office. His steps were steady as he walked towards the desk. In his hand was a familiar briefcase. The bright, tidy atmosphere in the office made him even more excited. When he sat down on the leather chair, Jack smiled slightly, turned on the computer and started working in a light, energetic mood. For him, every working day is a joy, an opportunity to contribute and be creative. While Jack was sitting in the office working, a guest walked into his company, an elderly man. The female employee quickly went out and invited him to sit down, poured him some water, and asked if he needed her help with anything. He said he was here to meet the director of the company, Jack. Hearing that, the female employee told him to sit down and drink some water while she called Jack out. The female employee immediately went into the office and called Jack out to meet the guest. Immediately Jack went out to the living room. He happily shook hands and greeted him. Then he asked the guest if he had come here to see him for anything. The guest said that today he came here because he wanted Jack to design and build a house for him. Because he had heard many people talk about the company and about Jack, everyone praised his company for working very professionally. There was a director here with very high expertise. All the projects he designed and built were very beautiful and of high quality, so now he came here. This time he put all his trust in Jack. He wanted him to build him a house that was beautiful, modern, convenient, and solid. Jack happily thanked him for trusting him to give his company the opportunity to serve and create the most beautiful house. Jack made an appointment with him another time to come and survey and check the terrain so that he could design the most satisfactory house for him. The customer happily stood up, shook Jack's hand, and made an appointment for Jack to come to his house one day to survey the premises. After the discussion, the customer left happily. Jack stood watching the customer. Then he continued to go into his office. Returning to the office, Jack continued to check the documents. Suddenly a phone call came to Jack. The person on the other end of the line said that they wanted to meet Jack to discuss work. He had a big project that he wanted to cooperate with Jack. Hearing that, Jack asked them to send him the address so he could go there to meet them. Jack collected the documents and then he went to the meeting place. When he went out, he told the staff some work that needed to be done. Then he felt secure to go out to discuss the work. At the farm, Tu Tien was here early, diligently clearing weeds in the sugarcane field. In the middle of the lush green sugarcane field, Tu Tien diligently bent down to pull out clumps of weeds growing densely at the base. Her gloved hands quickly pulled out the weed roots clinging to the ground. Her eyes were attentive and patient, as if afraid of missing any weeds that would affect the growth of the sugarcane. The old cloth had helped her shield herself from the morning sun. Sweat beaded on her forehead, but Tu Tien still worked diligently. Next to the sugarcane garden where Tu Tien was weeding was Tu Tien's dream house, where the workers were also working very hard. Tu Tien stood up to get the cart, and then she gathered large bundles of grass and loaded them into the cart. Even though it was sunny and sweat was pouring down her forehead, Tu Tien still worked hard. In no time, the large pile of grass was all gathered into the cart. When the cart was full of grass, Tu Tien pushed the cart to dump it. That image exuded Tu Tien's diligence, meticulousness, and simple love of labor, which was very admirable. After clearing the grass, Tu Tien sat down on the rock next to her to rest. Sweat was still beading on her forehead, but her eyes were shining with gentleness as she held a small cat in her arms. Tu Tien gently stroked the cat, her fingers lightly gliding over its tiny back, each loving gesture as if to convey warmth and protection. The cat obediently snuggled into her lap, its eyes half closed, its soft fur rubbing against her caring hand. The peaceful scene amidst the cool green garden made that moment even warmer and more intimate. After resting for a while, Tu Tien stood up to continue working. At that moment, her father-in-law also came over and asked her what she was doing. Tu Tien replied that she wanted to dig up this empty land to make some beds for growing vegetables. Her father-in-law immediately said that the land here was still very wet because it had rained for the past few days, so it would be difficult for Tu Tien to dig. He told Tu Tien to wait a few more days for the land to dry up and then she would stop digging. Tu Tien just smiled and said that she had not been to the market lately and had nothing to do at home, so she felt bored, so she should come up here to clean up as much as she could. Then she asked if he was planning to go somewhere. He said that he wanted to go into the hill to find bamboo to cut down so he could fix the gate at the farm below. Hearing her father-in-law say that, she told him to go early, lest it be too late. She showed him the hill where Tu Tien used to cut bamboo, and he immediately followed Tu Tien's instructions to go to the hill where there was a lot of bamboo to cut. Tu Tien watched her father-in-law's figure walk towards the edge of the forest. Then she continued her work. She bent down and held a hoe in her hand and dug into the wet ground. Even though the ground here had just rained and was still very wet, making it difficult to dig, Tu Tien still persevered and tried her best, because she wanted this land to become loose so she could plant rows of green vegetables. Meanwhile, on the side of the evil mother-in-law of Tu Tien, she looked like she was hurriedly running into a house deep inside the forest. It turned out that her son was lying here. Then she called her son up and scolded him for hiding in here, making her look for him for the past few days. Her son seemed angry and said that she had chased him away. So why was she still looking for him? She gently coaxed him, saying that her son should not be angry anymore, that she had a big deal that she wanted him to do with her. Then she called her son to go to the table and sit down to talk. Her son walked out with a suspicious look on his face. In the dark wooden house, the floor was damp with old things around. The mother-in-law and the ex-husband of Tu Tien sat opposite each other at the old table. Each ray of sunlight penetrated through the wooden gaps of the house and shone on both of their faces, revealing sinister features. They leaned their heads close to each other. Their voices were small but urgent, full of calculation. Ba told his son that Tu Tien's ex-wife had a new lover named Jack, and his family was very rich. Hearing his mother say that, the ex-husband seemed indifferent, saying that now he and Tu Tien had nothing to do with each other. Who Tu Tien dated was her business. The mother frowned and explained to her son that recently Jack had wanted to find Tu Tien's biological parents. So she asked her to reveal the whereabouts of Tu Tien's parents. She wanted to take this opportunity. Her son would cooperate with her to cheat a large sum of money from Jack. Hearing about money, her son's eyes lit up and he asked his mother what he had to do to trick Jack into giving him money. His mother told him to go to her friend's house to get some information about Tu Tien and then come back and tell her. Then she would have a way to trick Jack into giving him money. Her son looked doubtful and said how could it be that easy to trick him into giving him money? He thought she was probably just tricking him. Seeing that her son did not believe her words, she immediately took out a wad of money from her breast pocket and said that this was the amount of money she had swindled from Jack last time. Now that she wanted to get more, she needed her son's help and a thorough plan. She whispered to her son, her eyes shining with greed, that as long as he could ask for a little information about Tu Tien when she was young to use as evidence to tell Jack so that he would believe that they knew where Tu Tien's parents were. Then Jack, a lovesick and honest man, would not be able to bear to turn his back and would be willing to spend a large sum of money. The mother-in-law nodded, her veined hands clenched tightly, as if she was holding a dark plan. In their eyes, Jack's sincerity and trust were like a thick wallet, ready to be plundered at any moment. In the middle of the rotten house, the words of discussion echoed like the whispers of a devil, thick with cunning and betrayal. After discussing and outlining the plan, she took out some money to give to her son and told him to do the work that she had told him to do. When his mother gave him the money, her son seemed very happy because it had been a long time since he had held so much money. When he had the money, he immediately stood up to go to his mother's friend's house, as she had told him to get information about Tu Tien. When he left, he turned back and told his mother to stay here and wait for him to return with the information. Jack went to the address that the man had sent him through the previous phone call. There was a young man waiting for Jack. He greeted the man politely and asked why he wanted to meet him. The man said he knew Jack through Uncle Dung's story. When he heard him talk about Jack, he really liked Jack's enthusiasm and talent at work. So this time he wanted to meet Jack to discuss an upcoming project that he would invest in a high-end resort, and he wanted to give Jack the opportunity to do this project. The man gave Jack the blueprints and detailed plans of the project for him to see and refer to. Jack carefully read the blueprints and listened to the man explain the project. Jack seemed very interested in this big project. Without hesitation, Jack agreed to cooperate with the man on this big project. Jack thanked the man for trusting him and giving him this great opportunity. Then the two of them carefully read the contract. When they had reached an agreement, they signed the contract together and shook hands, which confirmed their close cooperation. When they finished discussing the contract, Jack looked up at his watch and asked the man for permission to go first because there were still many things to deal with. Leaving the cafe, Jack immediately went to the farm, went to the truck, and carried a large foam box into the farm. Today, Jack hired workers to rebuild the embankment for the stream next to the small house where Tu Tien's father-in-law was living. Jack's purpose in doing this was to reinforce the house and the stream so that they would not be affected by the floods. A young manager saw Jack coming and immediately went over to shake Jack's hand. Jack brought cold glasses of water to the farm construction site, where everyone was working hard under the scorching sun. Jack told the manager to call everyone to stop and sit down to rest. Today he bought soft drinks for everyone to drink. Listening to Jack, the manager called everyone to stop and sit down to rest. Jack took the cup of water and gently handed it to each worker. He wanted everyone to have a share so that no one would be left out. The friendly smile on his lips made the atmosphere warmer. Receiving the cool cups of water, everyone was happy. Their faces were much brighter. That simple concern made everyone feel more energized, easing some of the fatigue of the hard work at noon in the summer. Jack stood talking to the manager to see how the work was going. The manager reported the work to Jack and said that although it was very sunny, the workers were working very hard, but everyone was trying to work hard to speed up the progress. Just need to finish the embankment for Jack tomorrow. After listening, Jack happily told the manager to drink some water and sit down to rest while he took a few cups of cool water to bring to the construction site above for the workers working there, and importantly, there was the girl he loved there. He wanted to bring this cup of cool water to her. On the farm, Tu Tien was still diligently tilling the soil without noticing Jack approaching her. When Jack approached, Tu Tien looked surprised because she thought he was at work at the company. Jack placed a few cups of water on top of the pile of bricks, then took a cup and gave it to Tu Tien to drink. He gently took off her wide-brimmed hat, then gently wiped the sweat on her forehead. Tu Tien looked at him. Her cheeks flushed with emotion mixed with joy. Their eyes met, bright and warm, making that simple moment sweet and full of affection. Jack told her that he had just gone out to do some work, and on the way he bought some water to bring to the farm for the workers to drink. Today there were also workers working on the embankment at the farm, so he wanted to go in to see how everyone was working. Jack brought out some cups of water for the workers, and then he returned to where Tu Tien was standing. The two of them stood together leaning against the pile of bricks and watched the workers working. Together they looked at their love house that was gradually being completed. Tu Tien asked Jack why she still saw him buying more bricks. Jack replied that he wanted to take the opportunity to make Tu Tien a small kitchen so that she could cook for him every day. Tu Tien smiled happily, and then she leaned on Jack's shoulder. The two of them stood there looking at their house. Suddenly from afar, a man stood lurking in the bushes and looked towards the two people. It turned out to be Tu Tien's ex-husband. He was secretly hiding behind the bushes along the road, his eyes eagerly following every intimate gesture between Jack and Tu Tien. He bent low, occasionally looking around, trying to hide his presence. While standing there observing Jack and Tu Tien, he muttered that everything his mother said was true. This time he would return to plot with his mother to cheat Jack's money. A sinister smile flashed across his face, as if he was hatching an evil plot. In his mind, the plans to deceive and destroy the happiness of the other two people gradually became clear, like a predator stalking its fat prey, waiting for the right moment to strike. When he had grasped the situation, He turned and left silently while Jack and Tu Tien were completely unaware of his presence. When he got to the street, he suddenly met his father who had just come back from cutting bamboo. The two looked at each other in confusion, and then he asked his son what he was doing here. He said he had some work to do, and then he asked why his father was here too. He seemed to not know that his father was staying at Jack's house. He looked at his son and said that he was old now, so he should not come here to play around anymore, but should focus on his work and not think of bad things to harm others. Tu Tien now had a new lover, so he should not come here to have any bad intentions towards Tu Tien. He seemed to want to advise his son, but when he heard him speak, he seemed angry and grumpy, saying that it was none of his business, so he should not interfere. After speaking, he turned around and left, leaving his old father just standing there watching. At this moment, he felt extremely disappointed in this unfilial son. He carried the bamboo back to the farm and saw Jack standing there. He walked over and put the bamboo down, then stood and talked to Jack. He asked Jack if Zetien's ex-husband had just come in here. Jack was surprised and asked why he suddenly asked that. He said he had just met his son outside and didn't know how he could find his way here. He was afraid that his son had come here with bad intentions, so he warned Jack to be careful and be on guard. Jack thought that this matter might be related to his wife because she had been appearing in this area a lot recently. At the same time, Tu Tien brought a cup of water to invite him to drink and accidentally heard the story of the two people. She was worried when she heard about her abusive ex-husband appearing here. Tu Tien could only stand and listen to the two people talking to each other. Jack told the story that the day before, his wife also came to see him to discuss finding Tu Tien's parents because recently he wanted to find Tu Tien's biological parents. So he asked her to ask, but before he could ask much, the table asked for money from him before giving him any information. Jack took the opportunity to ask if he knew anything about Tu Tien's parents. He thought about it and said that when he took Tu Tien in, she was an orphan adopted by a friend of his wife. Later, his family asked Tu Tien to come back to be his daughter-in-law, so he didn't know anything about Tu Tien's biological parents. Then he warned Jack not to believe what his wife said because he knew his wife was a cunning and scheming person who often cheated others. So don't be foolish enough to give her money or you'll be cheated out of all your money. With the recent appearance of his son and wife, he confirmed that the mother and son were plotting something dark. He told Jack and Tu Tien to be careful. After saying that, he stood up and left, leaving Jack and Tu Tien there, deep in thought. Tu Tien told Jack everything her father-in-law had just said. She hoped Jack would be careful. She knew that recently he had wanted to find her parents, but she didn't want him to be taken advantage of by bad people because of this. They would take advantage of his kindness to cheat money and harm him. Jack held Tu Tien's hand and comforted her not to worry. From now on he would be on guard against their mother and children and wouldn't let them trick him again. Then he hugged Tu Tien and leaned on his shoulder as if to reassure her to worry less, as if to affirm that his shoulder would always be a solid support for her.